So if you've got an Intex pool heater that's suddenly stopped working, I'm going to show you how to fix it in this simple video coming up right after this. So this unit's about 4 years old and it's worked quite happily, but this light here stopped coming on and it stopped producing any heat. So I checked the fuses, all the rest of it, but it wasn't coming back on. So what we're going to do is we're going to use an Allen key just to sort of open up the top. Now you've got a screw there on the side to expose the electrics, and we've also got a screw there to expose the heating element. So we're just going to pop that off. Now I found mine was quite rusty, so I had to use a pair of pliers because it wasn't coming off. So that simply unscrews. Clean after 4 years use. There is a bit of scale on it, so you might want to use a descaler. So you can see there the actual heater element itself is pretty clean. Just get yourself a very small Phillips because it's quite a delicate screw, and just carefully remove those 2 screws. So as you can see, it's kind of rough. So it's not full of dirt as it were. It's just kind of very fine scale deposits, which is preventing that from moving up and down. So we can put a bit of IPA on there and give that a clean. As you can see, that's now moving quite freely. But what we can do is there's like an end stopper that's clipped on the end. So if we kind of pop that off, it allows us to take the whole unit apart. So we can give it a good clean properly. So just use your fingers and grab that and pull it off. Don't lose it. As you can see, there's a magnetic end. And the magnetic end always goes at the top, so remember that, so don't get it the wrong way around. And then just use the IPA just to give that whole stick a good clean. Also give the inside a good clean as well. Now yet again, this clear part seems to get gritty, so use the IPA just to get that nice and clean. You see, it's quite dirty. So just use a microfiber towel just to dry it all off and give it a good clean. Even though with the IPA it should clean itself off anyway, just give it a good rub. Just to make sure everything's off. There you go, much better. And then just stick the earbud inside there just to give that a quick dry out. There you see, much better. So we'll just put it back together now. So just remember that the magnetic part goes at the top. Pop the clip back in. And then pop the cover back on. And that should be moving quite freely now. So pop your 2 screws back in. Just give the whole thing. I find IPA doesn't remove scale. So you might want to use like a kettle descaler or something like that if yours is really bad. But mine was pretty clean, to be honest. So I thought, well, while we're actually taking it apart, what would be a good idea is actually to clean those rubber seals. Now you might want to use a bit of rubber silicone here if you've got any. I'd just use a bit of IPA and just give it a wipe with a cloth. And just pop the seal back in. And the other seal is at the top. So pop that off and then give that a clean as well. It's in pretty good condition considering it's 4 years old, but I suppose it is only used for sort of 4 or 5 months out of the year. Now there is a certain way that this goes back on and then it locks in place. And then drop the whole thing back down. Don't forget to put your screws in for the electronics at the top. Make sure that's nice and tight. The screws are delicate, so don't do them too tight, otherwise you'll cross thread them. And then get the plastic housing and then just pop that back on. And the same with the top. And don't forget to put your locking screws back in either. Now what I've done is I've sealed off the bottom and I've applied power to it, so we're going to get some water and fill it up and actually see if it lights up. And voila, there it is, it's gone red. So there we are, fixed. And that's all it is, it's just a faulty float. So I plumbed it all back into the swimming pool area. So for a real live test rather than a sink test. And there you go, it's back on. And that is how you fix an Intex pool heater that suddenly stopped working. Now in the next part of the video I'm going to cover a modification I made. Now the one thing that's always annoyed me about the design of this pool heater is the inlet and outlet is on the same side. So the way my pumps are placed, it's always behind, which means I've got to basically run the pipe round the heater. Obviously on one side it's fine because it goes straight out, but under the bottom coming around and there's a bend on the pipe. Trying to figure out a way of turning it round because it's actually locked in place. So if you spin the top off again, what you will find is there is a notch. And there is only one notch, which means it'll only go one way. There's no notch on the other side. Now that notch is also below the rubber seal. And there's the notch there. So what you want to do is get a knife or a Dremel or something just to remove that notch. So we want it to go that way. So basically you've got water coming in from the left hand side, and then the output goes on the right hand side. So that my filter can sit at the left, and then the output to the pool goes to the right. I don't understand why they would design it both in and out on the same way. So rather than modifying the base, we can just use a knife or a Dremel or something just to sort of cut that notch off. Now be careful with a knife, because it is reasonably hard plastic. Dremel might be a better bet. But if you use a sharp Stanley blade, you can actually cut that notch off. Once I've made the cut, then I just use a pair of pliers just to remove it off. It doesn't sit totally flush with the bottom anyway, so just smooth that off. And then that allows us to put it the other way. So because it still sits above the rubber seal, once it's screwed in tightly with the ring, it's still perfectly watertight and doesn't leak. So now that notch is gone, we can then pop the top on and run it the other way. So get the ring, tighten that up. Now the one thing I did find is now that the notch is there, it's not perfectly as I was tightening it, I actually moved it around slightly, so I just had to undo it again just to line it up. And there we go, that'll be leak free. So there we go, so we've got the inlet at the bottom coming in, and then the outlet at the top. And that is how they should have designed it. I just do not know why they would put it on that way around. So that brings us to the end of the video. I hope you found it interesting and informative. Smash that like button if you so desire, and leave me a comment with any feedback or if you any problems that you've had and how you've fixed it. I do appreciate it. So until next time, see you later.